Hey, good morning. Good morning. Right on 7:33, Wednesday, April 6th. Cabo Enterprises, ITD, and Jack in the Box. The link. Wahoo's to Chris. Good morning. You know, Wednesdays, every other Wednesday, we get a speaker, Therese Terlaje. And she definitely got a lot going on that we're going to try and get to this morning. But, you know, first things first, her bill that would repeal the liquid fuel tax, leading to 20... Madam Speaker, let me get this straight, because when I was crunching the numbers, is it 21 cents off a gallon if this thing passes?
All right. So according to our law, we've got a 15 cents tax on regular gas, right? 14 cents on diesel, but 15 cents on regular gas. On top of that, there's also a 4 cents per gallon automotive surcharge tax. And on top of that, there's another 4 cents. It's called transit surcharge. So altogether, my bills would be repealing 23 cents per gallon. Wow. Off of what we are paying now, off of what you pay at any time. So this is proposing to be a permanent repeal. I believe the general fund is able to cover this expense, and this expense is being collected for these purposes that we are already funding, right? And
can you? I'm sorry, Madam Speaker. Can you talk about that, because I'm pretty sure that critics of this measure, that's the first thing they're going to jump to, right? Is like,
of course. So the liquid fuels tax currently goes into a special fund, and it's divvied out, right? But it goes right now towards, it's supposed to go to road repair, village streets. It's supposed to go, some of it goes to the mayors. Some of it goes to mass transit, but that's that transit surcharge, right? So, yes, I do think we should continue to fund those things that this special fund is currently funding, but I don't think we should fund it on the backs of the consumers anymore. I think that if we are seeing $62 million in excess general funds right now, that we are clearly able to cover the $10 million that's estimated that we are collecting from this, and that we would give that direct benefit to people. And I think, you know, I don't think I need to explain to you the importance of gas, right? Right now, before we have converted to any other type of economy, we need gas to get to work. We need gas to get to school. Businesses are running on gas pretty much. And so that's why I came up with this. I'm trying to get something that's going to relieve a little bit of these super high rising gasoline prices, the high rising cost of living on Guam overall. Yeah. And so I'm trying to get something that guaranteed goes straight to that consumer. And that, and so this is what we're looking at, 23 cents per gallon of gas at the fuel pump.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, I mean, because it's not now the gas prices, because it's, you know, nationwide, it's, you know, on the tip of everybody's tongue, and definitely in their, you know, pocketbook too. But we have high gas prices, you know, regardless of what's going on in the Ukraine or whatever. So I mean, if you could chop 23 cents out of the price of a gallon of gas, I mean, even during times when it's not, you know, front page or top story on the news.
No, I agree. Yeah, I've been thinking about this for a long time. It's actually an idea that my dad was suggesting to me. And so I really had to look at it. And, you know, this is something, you know, you will see across the street, some of them raised their gas prices over the last few years. We did. We raised it 4 cents. But I think, and I was one of those that agreed with that back then, but I don't agree with it anymore. Not now, while we are seeing excess general fund revenues, while I have seen, you know, they come in, we've just passed a law recently that allows, you know, bigger trucks to run on the roads. And it was proven before that the big trucks, you know, are really causing big impact on our roads. But if we're going to allow that, then I don't want the consumers, like regular consumers, families, to be really bearing the cost of all of that when it's not being equally shared. So I would like to give them a break on that cost. And I think that this will help them in their pursuit of employment, their pursuit of, you know, just regular living on Guam. Yeah, getting their children where their children need to go.
Support for the measure?
I'm hoping that, okay, so the hearing is tomorrow at 1:30 p.m.
Okay.
It's an in-person hearing here at the legislature. So please, anyone out there who wants to talk about decreasing their fuel prices by 23 cents per gallon, please come to this hearing. I could use a testimony. I think my colleagues, I would like for you to convince them that this is something important to you. I have talked to some of the fuel companies, and they seem to be on board. All the ones that I talked to said, for sure, they will pass this savings on. There's no doubt about it. And so I'm very much thinking this is going to I'm hoping this will get the support of my colleagues. Yes. And of course, it's a matter of, do we cover those other expenses that this was covering? Some of the mayor's expenses, some of the village street repairs. And I say, absolutely, yes, that should absolutely be a priority. And we are able to do that. Again, the impact of this bill, $10 million overall to the government of Guam, right? And we can clearly cover that with our $62 million excess revenues. And I would prioritize this, or covering, village street repairs with that 62 million over, above step recruitments, over additional hiring, over many, many other things that we are currently, that they're putting on the table. They want to hand out all the money. And I say, why don't we give it back to those people who are paying it to us, instead of, continuing to see prices rise. And we've waited for years for a solution to these high gasoline prices, for investigations, for different types of solutions. None of them has really panned out. And so this is the one thing that Guam controls. That's the tax that we have put on gas. And so I'm hoping I can get the support of our entire community, that we all together agree. What we control, we can't control the shipping. We can't control, the global fuel prices, but we can control our own tax. And let's do that. And let's do that for the benefit of families who could use this savings and on something very much more important.
Madam Speaker, I know you said the hearing is tomorrow, 1:30 in person. Is there a Zoom capability? Because I just thought, what if someone doesn't have, ironically, the gas to get down to the hearing?
That is very ironic and very possible. No, yeah. That's a reality, right? Yeah. And right now, it's looking like in person only. This is a hearing held by Senator Joe San Augustine. He was referred to his committee. Right. When they told us we no longer have to have virtual hearings, I think a lot of us converted over to the in-person. Yeah. But I'm thinking now, we're going to all have to rethink that, because some people have really gotten used to the virtual, and it has shown to be convenient for certain types of people who don't have the transportation or the accessibility to get down. Yes. Yeah,
definitely. And I actually read something about the Zoom application and how it's done more for carbon emissions, because people are not getting in their cars and driving around or doing the Zoom. Yeah,
for sure. That's a great idea. I'll suggest it to the chair, but I know the notice was saying in person.
Okay, and 1:30 tomorrow.
Yeah, I would suggest if there's anyone who wants to testify via virtual, that they call the Senator San Augustine's office or my office, and we'll try to arrange that. Like I did that for Dr. Berg the other night, the public hearing that we had, because apparently he was off island. I had said it's an in-person hearing. I really wanted to see.
This is for Resolution 291. You're talking about this hearing?
So right. We had a late night. Well, we had a hearing beginning at 5:30 p.m. For Resolution 291. We invited everybody that we could think of that would weigh in on this public health emergency, GMH, public health, of course. We had Dr. David, who is a consultant to public health right now. We had
Madam Speaker, can I just ask, because when you're talking about who was testifying, I'm just curious. So was majority of the testimony, was it from like the cabinet members? Because I heard from Daniel Perez, our reporter who was on the scene, that they were all there. So I know it was several hours of testimony, but how many how many regular people got to testify?
Yeah, we had 4 panels. Four panels about 8 each. That's how many could fit on one panel. And I would say 2 of those panels were government. Those were the names sent down from the governor's office. But we had also invited these people. That includes public health, GMH, And we tried to get Homeland Security. They did not come, but at least for those agencies. And then I'm trying to remember, but the rest of the panels were all private citizens. So those were private citizens, and then they were the rest were all private citizens. Some were doctors, some were we had Ruth Gurusamy as well. Yeah.
What was the? Are you able to say, just I guess, kind of generally, what the tone of the testimony was for the night?
Yes. So clearly, many people in the community who testified are in favor of lifting all mandates, and they want the public health emergency powers lifted, for sure. The public health agencies that testified are clearly against lifting this public health declaration of emergency. And they laid out, I have to give them credit, I thought they did a good job of laying out the reasons why they thought we should keep them. And those include, there are services that are being provided under an emergency basis that they think we must continue if we are going to give, adequate service to the people of Guam.
What types of services were they referencing?
One of them was SNAP benefits, food, and the other one was, the hospital described that that some of the things that they are currently doing or able to do are only because of emergency powers. Both public health and the hospital described the licensing of nurses as a big one, that all nurses and health professionals right now are still being licensed under an emergency basis, meaning they don't have to wait for anything. They come in, their application comes in, and pretty much same day, whenever that chairperson can get to it, they are emergency licensed. And so that's been going on for the period of the pandemic. Those are the types of things that they've cited. They've cited the ability to kind of rearrange the hospital and bring in the infrastructure that's needed on the other floors for, air, oxygen, and the other requirements in case we have another surge, right? So they've definitely improved the hospital. They claim under an emergency procurement basis, an emergency declaration of the governor's authority to move things around. Well, but I think we really have to go through each of those, because I think there's a lot of that can clearly happen already, right? And we do have regular emergency powers without this public health emergency powers. We have emergency procurement, right? There is already an emergency procurement, and we have, I think it was a consensus among the senators that were there that no one wants to see us lose any federal funds that we can obtain. For example, SNAP benefits, right? If we are covering a larger amount of people, 14,000 was the estimate who would lose SNAP benefits if we ended the public health emergency. Of course, I don't think anybody wants that to happen. So I just think we have to find ways that are narrower. But it seemed to me that, while we are lifting mandates, that's the number one concern. Mandates need to be lifted according to almost all the testimony. Yeah. And but the agencies seem to want this power and flexibility to do things a little different than normal. And so to continue to the governor authorize that. Yeah.
No, that kind of seems, I see that, right? It's like we got used to living in this emergency and all the shortcuts that it provides. And now I feel like our government doesn't want to go back to the old way because it's just too complicated, or it takes too long.
But it shouldn't be, Chris.
Of course, no, Madam Speaker. Yeah. Yes, I agree totally. It shouldn't be that way, but that's how it looks, I think, to a lot of people.
Yeah, no, it does. That's their argument, and that's the issue I take with public health. For example, they talked about their outbound or homebound program,
Operation Homebound.
Yes, those types of things. They have talked to us. We've had oversight after oversight, and they always lay those things out. Like those are part of their permanent plans. And those are part of other grants that, they're receiving despite the emergency. And so I expect that to be the way we provide services going forward, right? I expect every agency to use what they have learned in this pandemic and bring those forward. And if there's any legislative impediment doing that, then they should bring them to us. And I want to tell you right now, they have not. And I asked them all while they were there, send it to me right now. I will take a look at those and introduce them if those are going to help us to move to operate going forward the way you think we need to that you're not able to now. But I think they need to be very, very precise on that. So I'm looking forward to public health sending some of that down, GMH as well, if there's anything, But
Speaker, I'm sorry, I wanted to ask because we were talking this morning. That I know we had something in the news yesterday relative to Hawaii Governor David Ige and how he kind of piecemealed emergency declaration, at least for the SNAP benefits. Now we did ask the governor if she would be willing to do something like that, and her response was, "Why should she do something like that?" Do you think that that's where we're going to be going when this resolution hits the floor and is open for debate?
I can't predict right now, but I think that of course we should be looking at. I think what really strikes a negative reaction in people is a very broad sweep, right? Where we say everybody vaccination or nothing or whatever, and we have to really just address the realities in front of us. And I, for one, want these agencies to really be specific about what it is that they need emergency powers for. And I am very willing to accommodate that, but if they can't spell it out, then I don't think we should accommodate that. The reason is because the governor can always declare another emergency, right?
Yeah.
And so some of the agencies talked about the delay from a declaration of emergency and the actual procurement of supplies and things. And so I hear that. And I think that we should continue to procure supplies that are available to us because of the emergency, procure services that are available to us because of the emergency, FEMA, for example. And that we should continue to do that as long as we can. That will help our community. I agree with that. So I think we need to find a good way to do that moving forward. So that a lot of even the agencies admit we need a transition plan. The problem is they don't have one, so we need one, and that's pretty much where the work needs to lie.
Whose job
right
is
now.
that, Speaker? Because I know that I've heard some of the legislators say there's no exit plan, but then we have the governor and she's saying, "Oh, what's their exit plan?" So who the hell is supposed to come up with this exit plan?
I think we're talking about agencies that want certain powers. And of course, these agencies are headed by the executive branch. And I think they need to work together and say, what do they need to continue versus, what can we go back to normal on? And if there's anything that they need legislatively to continue, then we will do that. But otherwise, for example, Operation Homebound, they've said they can do that without legislative authority going forward. They're supposed to have established a brand new bureau in the Department of Public Health that allows them for any contagious disease to track, trace, immediately. That was all supposed to be set up during this time. So we should have like the infrastructure that is needed. Of course, we have perennial problems like the hiring of nurses. And so I'm talking to the board of nursing, the nursing board, licensing board now, to try to find, can they address this backlog in licensing, right?
But Madam Speaker, it's confusing because you said earlier that one of the things they said about that they love about this emergency declaration is that they can fast track the nurses, but now you're saying that there's a backlog.
Well, I mean, it's a backlog if you're going to regular license them. Now they would have a backlog, right? So if that's what one of the testimonies was, it's kind of like a circular thing, right?
Yeah,
Well, if you take away the emergency, then all of our emergency licenses are removed. Of course. So that's why I want to know from especially the nurse licensing board, well, how fast can you address them, right? And why can't you address them now? So the argument always was that the nurses were all, pretty much operating at full capacity in our critical response. So they cannot take care of those types of things like testing, thorough licensing review.
Yeah.
But I think, we just had some hearings with the nurse licensing board not too recently, and they've been working very hard. So I suspect that they will have a plan, and they could have a plan of how to take care of all the regular licensing requirements. And if they still believe they need some emergency licensing of nurses going forward, for example, travel nurses, GMH, complains that licensing travel nurses takes them too long under the regular process, and they love this process that they're under now, where they bring in travel nurses and can license them in a day. Well, we can maybe come to some kind of compromise on that. If that is a safe, they can show us that that's safe and that's something we should do on a permanent basis, and then let's do it. But yeah, that's the kind of thing that they need to lay it out. I think this has to come from the agencies. They're the ones who are saying they need it, so they have to lay it out.
Yeah, I really hope that it kind of sounds like if we lift this emergency, it almost seems like we're going to be worse off than before the pandemic, because it sounds like they're using the emergency to do a lot of things. And I'm just worried that, we have this all this ARP money, and like, where are the long-term solutions? Well, I guess that would be the new hospital, right? But it's just interesting that if we remove this emergency, it seems like we're in a deeper hole than, when it started.
Well, of course, right? We've tried to establish infrastructure so that we can move forward. For example, with this money, we're supposed to be using some of it for the training of nurse assistants, right? Nurses, all of that. And, we tried to dedicate it, some UOG, GCC, Department of Labor, they have money to do apprentice programs. And it's supposed to be to fill these hard to fill services, these positions that we have always been in critical need of. So yeah, it's I hear what they're saying, that they're worried that going back to normal is going back to, not that great, but we can do better. I just think we have to do better, and we will do better, but we can do that in a consistent way. And I just think if there's something, for example, I don't think it's policy. I think it's just a matter of operations, right? A lot of it. It's, are you operating like this is critical, or are you not, right? That's another thing.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of contrast that you can point to. How productive is this going to be, though, Speaker? I mean, just like watching the session last week and the motions to even get this thing on the agenda. I mean, and I don't think it was the content of the resolution that made the actions on the floor a little. I mean, it was a little heated, right? Let's be honest. But when you have the governor on one side saying that the senators are jeopardizing people's lives, that this resolution is totally, totally dangerous, right? And then you have, on the other side, the arguments of the sponsors of this resolution. Are we going to be able to find middle ground?
I'm pretty confident that no senator wants to jeopardize anyone's life. And in fact, that night when we were hearing public testimony, even the sponsors of the resolution, admitted that that's not their intention, is to affect lives or to, negatively affect those people who are receiving benefits, especially from the federal government or our local government, because of the situation the pandemic has caused: unemployment, lack of food, lack of services, critical health issues, right? Everybody they were predicting, some of the health agencies were predicting, one predicted a surge again in COVID, right? Another surge. One predicted a surge in non-COVID illness. That is what's going to be our next surge, that we are going to need emergency capabilities to take care of. And that's alarming, right? Of course. And I don't think there's anyone in the legislature. I think we very much agree that we want to arm our hospital, our public health agencies with whatever they need to address critical healthcare needs. And so we are going to do that. And I think when you start, there was a big distinction that night between mandates like mask, mandates like vaccine, room capacities, the operation of businesses, for example, that maybe too, we have an agreement on that, right? That how much of those are continued to be necessary. But yeah, so I think if everybody remains level-headed, and that we will see that there is a way forward. I have utmost confidence in that, and you're right. It's hard because we don't just have people telling us what they think we should do. Sometimes we've got people yelling at us what they think we should do, and I don't think that helps anybody here.
On both sides. I mean, you're seeing it on both sides, right? Supporters of the resolution and detractors of it.
Yeah, and I really think, because when I talk to the senators, every single one of them, they always seem to have a good intention. I'm not gonna, let's admit also that, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't.
Just do it. Come on, Speaker. Go for it. Come on. Come on.
Let's admit also that, there's a campaign coming up, and I can see everybody's under a lot of stress. And sometimes these things, come into play, and we just have to balance that out. Yeah. So I just think, I don't know.
There's a campaign coming up? What are you talking
about? Yeah, what? Unfortunately, because it really makes people act a little bit
funny, yes.
I think, yeah.
Well, okay, note to our elected leaders, campaign should not be what is stressing you out. The issues of the day should be what is stressing you out.
Yes, and I am kind of stressed because I feel like I'm stressed for time, right? That's how I always feel. I always feel this because this legislative seat is a 2-year term. You got to get everything done in 2 years. Yeah. I think that's very difficult, and I work like heck to try to do that. But it's if I feel pressure for myself, it's that. So of course, long debates, long hearings. Sometimes
heated hearings.
I'm all for let's debate this all out, because I really believe we will come to a better solution if we can hear from everybody. I really believe that. So I'm willing to do the work that takes. But I don't like posturing for any other reason. I don't like, if it's going to give us some ideas of how to move forward, let's hear it. If it's just to talk, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. It's interesting because when you talk about a campaign, right? I think for everyone running, it's going to be, I don't know. I find it funny when you're going to have one side of people's campaigns saying that, hey, we're doing great, everything's fine, and then now we're in this conversation where it's like, no, it's still an emergency. Rah! You know what I mean? So it's such an interesting set of circumstances, I guess is how I'll put it. Madam Speaker, I wanted to talk, because you're talking about healthcare, specifically paramedics. Though I asked you about this a few weeks back. Yes. This paramedic program that was put in jeopardy because the body that was conducting it lost its accreditation. But we have a solution now?
Yes, I believe so. I had a long discussion with the people involved in organizing this. And so I think what they have decided to do, or they should have done already, is send one cohort to the states to work under a licensed paramedic. And working under that licensed paramedic, it's like an internship. You have to do it under a licensed one. There are none on Guam to do this with. That was the kink in the system. And they couldn't send their people out here to work here. So we are sending our people out there, at least the first cohort of at least 4 people. Hopefully they can be successful. They can pass the test. They can come back, and then they will be licensed paramedics, and they can be that licensed paramedics that the rest of the cohort can work under. Otherwise, the rest of the cohort, we would have to send them out to continue to.
So basically, we're sending all these people to do their internship, then they're deputized, and they're able to come back, and people can train under them.
Yes, hopefully that's the plan. Yes, right. And then once we get a few licensed paramedics who are willing to help us to license others, I think they've got a good system in place. Yes. And we're very much looking forward to the results, because we need as many as we can get.
Last issue I wanted to talk with you about was this meeting that the governor had with the original landowners of the property up there at Eagles Field, where her proposed $1 billion healthcare complex is going to be. I've talked to a couple of the landowners, but just more on background about what occurred in the meeting. Were you able to speak with anybody and determine what happened in the meeting, what was said?
My understanding from some of the people who talked to me after that meeting, I wasn't invited to that meeting, but they were pretty much told that the land is not excess. You're not going to get this land back. But then they start saying, talk to Director Birch of Ancestral Lands Commission and tell him whether you want compensation or you want your land back. I don't know what's the plan there. It just seems to be a little, running around. The issue I have with all of that is that the Secretary of the Navy wrote to the governor saying they agreed the land could be treated as excess. They were going to add it to the list. They wrote this in a letter. And it's not until the governor met with the secretary and other people that they now are taking it back, right? And saying, no, we can only lease it to you. And if they can lease it to us for 100 years, but still claim that it's not excess, I find that, just, I hate to use that word that's overkill around here, disingenuous, but it really is, right? It's like, how could we, the government of Guam, go into negotiations and agree that we're going to lease back ancestral lands, first of all? Second of all, that these are not excess, even though the military is willing to lease them to us for 100 years. It's always been our position that we advocate that excess lands are released. They're not held and leased back to us. That's never been the position of the government of Guam. And so I think, we should be advocating for that, and especially for these landowners. Some of them are, first generation, they're still alive.
Yeah, that's the thing, is I think a lot of people have this maybe this idea in their head that we're talking about, the great grandkids of people who might have owned this land, but no, they're actually living, breathing human beings who are original landowners of this property. I talked to a couple of the landowners who attended that meeting, Madam Speaker, and not see a day. I feel I
feel very bad too. I feel like they're so hurt. They're very confused. They're being told now, they have a choice to get compensated. I want to make it clear. There's no landowner on Guam that's been compensated by the Ancestral Lands Commission yet, right? The Ancestral Lands Commission has some money that they get from leasing some of their properties, and that money is supposed to go towards compensation. The issue is there are so many landowners lined up for compensation that they might end up getting pennies. And that's what I don't want to see. I'm like, why are we sending these landowners to line up in that list to get pennies if we have a chance to advocate that they get their land instead? And, no land has been returned on Guam without us advocating for that. And we did it together. We were never divided on it. Everybody was united. Return the land, and that's how some of the landowners have received their land. And I don't think this is the time or the generation that we want to go back on that type of responsibility. I really feel that's a duty of ours, to bring that forward, to show future generations that we have not lost our commitment to these people who really were, there was an injustice done to them. And we want to rectify that in the way that we can find. And that was the way that we came up with. The legislature before me, they came up with, we're gonna take care of them because, we are going to give them their land.
I was surprised, Speaker, when I talked to, because I talked to a couple of the landowners that attended the meeting, and just even what they want out of it. I mean, there was one gentleman, original landowner, and he said that he just wants the kids to keep playing football. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was that he was like, I don't want the land, I don't want my money, I just want the kids to keep playing football. Others said they just want the land. But I just imagine this setting where these manamko, right? They're showing up to this meeting without a lawyer. None of them brought a lawyer, which I thought was kind of like.
My understanding, and I need to call Director Birch and clarify this, but my understanding is that he was the one telling them, you can't get your land back. And, he's the executive director of the Ancestral Lands Commission, and I've worked very well with him, so I need to clarify that. But I don't think it's any of our jobs to be telling these people that they are never going to get their land back. We're not going to advocate for that. I think we should be doing the opposite. I really believe that it's incumbent on any of us who wants to call ourselves leaders to advocate for that. We should never stop. There's still other lands, and you can see they're not being used. They should be returned. The GPA is leasing land back from the Navy up there to build a solar farm. I don't know,
Big departure. You're right. I mean, you're right. It's a big departure from the days of Ongit, and just you're right. We were all on the same page, and that was kind of one of the big pillars of what it meant to be someone in the government, was that you had to champion the return of the excess lands. I mean, it's just like a done deal, and this is a total 180. I feel from you're right what we've done in the past.
Yeah, that's why I worry, and I worry what we're kind of teaching the younger generation kind of to give up or to say it's beyond our control, right? When really nothing has come to us easy. We've had to fight for it. And I think we should continue to fight for it. Now is not the time to say, okay, give us little parcels back and keep all these big tracts. No, I don't think so. It's still, these people are still alive, some of them. And I think we should do what we can while they are alive to seek some type of justice, in this regard.
I mean, it's interesting even to look at it politically, right? We have, like a very vibrant activist community on Guam. It's been very silent on this. I mean, this is everything. You have a government, taking land and keeping it from the people who originally owned it. I mean, it's the whole hashtag land back movement, but we're not seeing any traction or really any. I mean, the only people talking about it, I feel like, is me, you, and the original landowners.
That's unfortunate because, we're going to just have to work harder, Chris, you and I, because we need to do that. I'm telling you, it wasn't easy for those people who did it in the past. They, many of them were even arrested, but they learned, but they taught all of us, right? They taught all of us the importance of it. They taught all of us the injustice of it. And they taught all of us that you fight for what is just. And that's the only way we're going to get results. Not by saying, oh, do whatever you want. Never are we going to get just results that way. And never are we going to get just results by saying, I think, we're going to pay you for our land.
So that public hearing tomorrow, 1:30, on the repeal of the liquid fuel tax.
Yes. We're having a lot of hearings today, too. There are several bills. One's a victims' rights bill by Mary Torres. This afternoon, I'm having an informational briefing. It's regarding, I call it mineral rights. It's really the extraction, right? So we know that some of the limestone up north is very valuable right now. They need it for all the military buildup projects that they want to do. So some of these government agencies are getting some really big offers or offers to use this land. It's similar to what the Raceway did, where they excavated, sold that minerals, and there's money to be made in that. The issue for me is, so I'm calling a roundtable informational briefing with these agencies. I want them to lay out what guidelines are they using when they allow this type of grading. And this is not your regular grading. This is, down to the core grading, I call it. But you've seen this around Guam. And so apparently, they're permitted. And so I just want to make sure when they're permitted over the aquifer that there's no harm that we are seeing, or less integrity of our aquifer, less protection of it. And I want to make sure that all these agencies have some kind of guidelines in place when they permit this type of activity. And then I want to, I'm trying to get a feel for how can we do that safely, and then we can decide whether we should do it at all, right, in government property. Because they want to use Chamorro Land Trust for that. They want to use ancestral lands for that. And it's kind of like cash. This is easy cash. We'll grade the property down for you. We'll give you cash.
Oh, man, you'd be surprised, Madam Speaker. People would be happy to get a couple of dump truck loads of Cascao at their property.
It's super valuable now, even more than normal. Yeah. The value is very high. So, that's why we're going to run this.
We're going to start exporting Cascao, right? Thank you, Madam Speaker, for your time today. Good talk.
All right. Take care.
You too. There you go. She's the Speaker of Iles La Turan Guahan. Speaker Therese Terlaje, 814. Yeah, wow, she's saying that, well, she sounded optimistic about this Resolution 291 and the discussion that's definitely going to happen at the legislature with the committee. Senator, Minority Leader, Senator Chris Duenas said last week, remember we played the clip? He called it. He said, hey, we're going to give 5 days, let this thing marinate, the open government thing. And then he wants to call for a committee of the whole. And we get the cavalcade of cabinet members down there at the Guam Congress Hall to, plead their case and explain to the people of Guam why they still need this emergency health declaration, the public health emergency, to stand in all of its forms right now. 814. Let's take just a short break, sir, like this short, and then we're going to come back.